Welcome back to Crit and Crit. I'm Axion.
I'm Sint.
And we are back to Mario Adventure. It's getting into the colder season now, and it's time to talk about snow.
I thought we weren't going to do a Song of Ice and Fire because I hate them.
I set my controls up wrong. One moment. Alright. Apologies for that. We're back. And no, we're not doing Song of Ice and Fire. Thank goodness.
Thank God.
Nope. We are doing... Well, since we're back in Mario Adventure, we are clearly doing another fairy tale. In this case, we are doing The Snow Queen.
Ready for some depression? Because it's by Hans Christian Andersen.
Whee!
So yeah, it's fairly unique as far as fairy tales go, as I recall, because I don't remember most fairy tales being this long.
It is...
It's more of a novella than a bedtime story.
Yep. The video I watched of it on YouTube to get prepared for this, rather than try and find a copy to read, I just found an audiobook, was almost an hour and a half long. And yeah, it was a pretty solid story with something like 7 or 8 parts.
Yep. Which we probably need to talk about, because each part is a very different section of the story. Like, you change scenery quite frequently as the quest goes on. But we should first talk about why there is a quest necessary.
Well, because it's a fairy tale, there's always a quest.
No, not always. Like, some fairy tales are like, oh, we're just gonna have these kids at home and then we're gonna punish one of them because morals or something.
Ow.
But yeah, a lot of them have a quest, but not all. In this case, it becomes necessary because demons are screwing around.
Okay, that was just cheap. The Boom Boom slid and when it was supposed to be standing still. But then again, that fits in with this story as well. And monsters being cheap jerks who don't quite play by the rules because it's funny. This story begins with a troll. Though some translations of it called the creature a demon or even the devil. And this troll creates a magic mirror. But this is not the Snow White, who is the fairest of them all type of mirror. This is a mirror that shows...
the opposite.
Huh? Yeah.
This is a mirror that has a Twitter filter on it. It will show you the absolute worst of whatever you see.
Here we are, back at me dying a million times in Mario.
Isn't it nice to have a comforting familiarity to go back to?
So yes, anyone who this mirror shows, it shows their worst traits in great magnification and minimizes their positive ones. And
the reason this mirror becomes relevant is because the hobgoblins... So the ebook I found switches between demon and hobgoblin, so yeah, there's many different ways to translate it. In other words, this reckless scamp decides, let's take it up to heaven so we can look at how bad the angels are with it. He, oh no, we dropped the mirror and it broke into a million tiny shattered fragments.
The one that I listened to straight up said God. Not just the angels, but let's go look at God himself and see what he looks like in the bad mirror. So yeah, that tells you what you're dealing with here. Yeah, one,
but yeah,
differences in translation, but two, this is the kind of prank that we are dealing with here.
Oh, it's a YouTube prank. You know, it's where it's very clearly like attempted murder or something, but they're gonna say it's just a prank, bro. It's for the likes. Anyway, this becomes a problem because these tiny, tiny shards, so small you can't even see them, if they get in your eye or your heart, you become unable to see the good in others and can become a terrible person. And this is what happens to kick off our story.
Yep. The story then leaves the demons behind completely and jumps over to a little village where we are introduced to our two protagonists, Kai and Gerta. Two children from a little village in the middle of nowhere.
They're best friends, practically siblings, because they're just so close. And everything is all well and good until one day, middle of summer, Kai gets gets shards in his eye and heart, and immediately just stops caring about anyone around him. Only sees everything as hideous and ugly, and just becomes a bully. Destroys Gerta's flower garden, makes fun of her grandmother, who basically raised both of them, and just generally becomes awful.
The only thing that Kai still finds appealing is math. And the only thing that he still considers beautiful is the perfect mathematical precision of fractal images, particularly those produced by snowflakes.
Despite all this, Gerta doesn't stop caring for him and worrying about him, which I have thoughts on, but they don't really work with fairy tale morals, so I guess I'll keep them to myself.
Ah, I forgot you run through that barricade there.
Well, you got past the chompy plant, so that's an improvement.
It is.
Anyway, this happens to go on for basically the rest of the year until winter rolls around, but Kai still seems interested in playing, and everybody has this game where they try to attach their sled to the back of passing carriages and hitch a ride. Well, he does. It happens to be a sled that's going quite fast and quite far, and it turns out to belong to the mythical Snow Queen.
Game, why did you not duck?
Snow Queen is essentially our Jack Frost, but apparently more malevolent in this version. Her job is to bring winter to the world. And she sees Kai is attached to her sled, she sees he's freezing, so she kisses him so he won't freeze to death, and then kisses him again to suppress his memories, because, well, obviously he's coming with her, so he's going to be sad, she thinks, if he, remembers things and wants to leave. So, yeah.
And
so Kai is now...
malevolent fairy entity she is. Or, well, at least appears to be at this part of the story. Takes him off into her magical fairyland and tells nobody what happened to him, leaving his family and friends to worry about him.
Which I honestly wonder how much his family and friends were worried, because I think Gerta might be the only one who still cares about him at this point, because thanks to the shards in his eye and heart, he's kind of become terrible to be around.
Yeah. And certainly nobody else makes any effort to go looking for him.
But yeah, Andersen never goes into detail about that. The fact that, yeah, he's now a jerk. We apparently are cool with this, and this is just how he is. I don't know. Maybe it's they're kids and it's puberty, and it's just chalked up to that. I don't know.
That certainly seems to be the implication to me, but we'll get into that in later detail. Greater detail later, rather.
Yep. So Gerta starts looking for him. All anybody can tell her is that, well, he never came back, so we assume that his sled came loose and he fell in the river.
And this is
So
where
Gerta,
we discover that Gerta has a special power.
I don't know if it's a special power though, because like this could just be like fairy tale logic, because sometimes this happens. But yeah, Gerta decides to ask the river, and the river tries to answer her, but she misinterprets it. Because what she does is she offers her favorite new red boots, because Kai hasn't gotten to see them, and when I find him, he'll want to see them. But they're also the most valuable things she owns, so she offers them to the river. Please give me back Kai. And the river gives back the shoes because, well, we can't. We don't have him. Gerta misinterprets this as, well, you didn't push them far enough out to sea, and they just washed back. So she gets out in a boat so she can drop them out in the middle, but the boat pushes off from the shore, and now she's adrift without much of a plan.
As you do.
But this brings her to a strange old woman who has a very, very lovely flower garden. And the old woman has not seen Kai, or K, depending on the translation. The one I'm checking my notes on now is K, not Kai, so that's fun. I like Kai better. But he'll probably pass by, so you should stay here with me. And she hides all of the roses in her garden because they remind Gerta of Kai, and she wants her to stay with her. She wants her to stay. There's a lot of let's just conveniently suppress your memory so you stay with me going on in this story.
Yep. It's a literal fairy story. There's weird fairy magic and everything going on.
Anyway, things go pretty well for a while until one day the old woman puts on her hat, which still has a rose on it because she forgot. Gerta sees it and is reminded of Kai. And the old woman apologizes and brings back the roses, and Gerta asks them if they have seen Kai, and they're like, no, we're in the ground where they bury dead things and we haven't seen him, so he must be alive.
I mean, given this story, that's as flawless a logic as anything else.
Yep. And she goes to leave, and it has now turned to autumn, and she has a lot of catching up to do with her journey to find her missing friend.
Yep. Also, she gets distracted for a while because all the flowers want to tell their stories, too, but their stories are completely irrelevant, for the most part. But, like, they're physically restraining her to keep her from leaving until they get a chance to tell their stories. And much of this section of the plot is taken up by all of these different stories of the various flowers, and Gerta just going, but this has nothing to do with Kai, and I don't understand what you're talking about, so why are you making me stay?
Yep. Which is almost funny, really, considering, like, as far as Andersen stuff goes, because, well, it very much feels like something Terry Pratchett would do of, like, I'm told I can get information here, and then there's just all this irrelevant information. Well, I didn't say be good. You know?
Yeah. That is...
Which is so out of character for anything written by Hans Christian Andersen.
Ah! Why didn't you fly, Mario?
It's raining. I actually don't know if that affects it or not.
I actually don't know.
Anyway, she continues along and she finds a talking crow who tells her that, well, maybe, actually I might have seen him because there's a princess up here who is about to be married to someone who finally told her what she wanted to hear. We can get into that later. So he helps Gerta get into the palace so she can look at the groom and see if it's Kai. It's not, so she's kind of completely wasting her time with this. But when the prince and princess wake up, she tells them her story. They're like, oh, you poor thing, and we're going to help you. And they offer her their hospitality, but she decides she needs to go find Kai instead, so they give her a literal golden carriage drawn by a horse to go look for him with. So that's nice. But once we leave the castle with our solid gold carriage, we are immediately robbed. Gerta is the only one not killed in the ambush, because the daughter of the leader of the robbers is like, I want to keep her to play with. So Gerta is now the prisoner pet, I don't know what to say, how to describe it, of a spoiled brat thief princess.
Prisoner pet is a really good way to put it, actually. Especially given what the robber princess shows her when she gets to their bandit castle. Oh, you jerk. Ah! Almost got him.
Yeah. Little robber girl gets everything she wants because she's, like, really stubborn and also has been trained to use a knife. Like, much of her dialogue is like, if you don't do this, I will put a knife in you.
Yep. She sleeps with Gerta in her bed, with her arm wrapped around her neck, with her knife against her face.
And so, as a restless sleeper, that would be a bad idea. I would look like the King of Hearts. Let's just put it that way. But yeah, eventually she does decide to let Gerta escape so she can go finish her journey.
Mostly because Gerta tells her story, and just like everybody else who hears Gerta's story, she actually feels bad and is like, "Oh, I should help you. This is a thing that keeps happening."
Yep, but we actually find out kind of where we are because the Snow Queen evidently has her home on the island of Svalbard.
And for those who aren't aware, where is that located?
Scandinavia.
There you go.
I'm being incredibly non-helpful. It's Norwegian archipelago, so it's a bit north of... It's between Norway and the North Pole, so we're getting close to Santa Land, for those of you who would prefer that we talk about the North Pole in mouse terms.
I mean, we are doing this as a Christmas
But
episode.
specifically, her strong castle is at the North Pole on an island called Spitsbergen, which is supposedly a location in Svalbard. I'm going to be honest, most of what I know about Svalbard comes from those Scandinavia and the World comics that pop up on the internet every now and then.
I'm afraid I don't remember. I'll have to look those up later.
They're very fun. Anyway, she gives Gerta some nice warm fur boots, and lets her go.
And lets her borrow her pet reindeer to ride on.
Specifically because I don't like to see you fret. You ought to look quite happy now, and here are 2 loaves and a ham so that you need not starve. So, just like, I like seeing you happy. That's the whole reason. So is this genuine kindness or just good pet ownership? I don't like that we've introduced this phrase.
And yet, here we are. Ah, crap.
So, on the reindeer, she travels north, makes 2 stops. The first is at a woman from Lapland.
Where precisely is Lapland? I drew a blank when I read that.
Finland.
Oh, okay. Is it just a different name for Finland, or is it a place in Finland?
It's a region.
Okay. So anyway, they go to Lapland, and...
It is the least densely populated area in the country, home to about 3.4% of Finland's total population.
Okay, so it's a really remote part of Finland.
Well, I mean, if it's northern Scandinavia, it's gonna be really cold, so...
I mean... Still, point being. She gets sent to this really remote location.
Yep, so she gives her directions and sends her on, and then Gerta stops at the Finland woman's house. So I don't know why we have two specific different ones here, unless it's the Lapland that's a province in Sweden, but the Finland one came up first in my Google. I think the Sweden one might make a little bit more sense if we're drawing a deviation between Lapland and Finland. I'm not sure. The point is we're going north, and she's asking people for help. But the Finnish woman does not give Gerta anything to help her other than confirming that Kai is with the Snow Queen. You need to get the broken glass out of his heart and eye. And can you not give little Gerta something to help her conquer this power? I can give her no greater power than she has already. Don't you see how strong that is? How men and animals are obliged to serve her, and how well she has got through the wood barefooted as she is. She cannot receive any power from me greater than she has now, which consists in her own purity and innocence of heart. If she cannot herself obtain access to the Snow Queen and remove the glass fragments from little Kai, we can do nothing to help her. So the power of innocence and purity is what's going to save the day.
Yay.
Anyway, she hurries on to the Snow Queen's palace, is stopped by the snowflakes guarding the door, but she prays, and this makes her tears become little angels who fend off the snowflakes and let her inside. Just like you have been let inside the ground.
That was a cheap death game.
Really funny, though. Meanwhile, Kai, again, does not remember Gerta because amnesia is a thing in fairy tales. So he's just been kind of happy as a clam there.
He likes the perfect mathematical beauty of snowflakes, and there are a lot of snowflakes in the Palace of the Ice Queen. So he's been left there while the Snow Queen rather, while she goes off about her business of making winter happen. And she's given him a little project while she's gone. He's to spell out various words using the ice fragments and snowflakes present in her palace. And he's apparently done several of these by this point, but he's stuck on the last one, which is to spell out the word eternity. And for some reason, the ice and snow simply will not cooperate. And we'll discuss the specifics of the reasoning why, or the possible reasonings why later. But
his prize for this, as she puts it, you shall be your own master and I will give you the whole world and a new pair of skates.
Which makes me laugh more than it probably should. Just the idea of, I will give you everything and also this.
Well, it makes sense when you remember, like, she's the Snow Queen. Like, the main forms of travel in winter would be sledding and skating. So, it's kind of like, here, I will give you a car. Like, I have a feeling it would be more akin to like a snowmobile in a more modern retelling, because it would still be like, yeah, I don't know, like that's just my guess on it. Is like, I don't think it's that silly, though. It's kind of
dissonant to modern ears. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, it's very much like the Turkish Delight in Narnia, where like most people I've talked to about that, like back when I read Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe an age ago, why would he sell out his family for candy? Well, because it's rationing during World War II. And he's like 6. all sorts of different reasons that make things make a lot more sense that kind of get lost with retellings in different historical ages. But anyway, Gerta comes in and he doesn't recognize her.
Yep. Barely even reacts to her presence.
Yep. And then she cries. They specify hot tears which fell on his breast and penetrated into his heart and thawed the lump of ice and washed away the little piece of glass which had stuck there. Then he looked at her and she sang, "Roses bloom and cease to be, but we shall the Christ child see." Then Kay burst into tears and he wept so that the splinter of glass swam out of his eye. Then he recognized Gerta and said joyfully, "Gerta, dear little Gerta, where have you been all this time and where have I been?" So it's just the love of someone familiar that saves him. Do, 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 do.
So, now freed of the influence of the Shard, and from the influence of the Snow Queen, because as Gerta has done these things, she's also been doing something that is removing a lot of the ice freezing on his body, and the numbness and obliviousness to the cold that the Snow Queen induced. And once he is back to quote-unquote normal, he's obviously, you know, oh, it's very cold here, and ready to leave. So they trek their way back out of the palace and find...
Well...
Go ahead.
The puzzle solves itself for him.
Oh yes, the puzzle solves itself.
Yeah,
as
it's like Gerta weeps for joy, which makes the ice dance, and as they dance, they end up forming the shape of the word eternity. So Kai's free to go.
Yep. And as they leave, they find the reindeer outside waiting for them, along with his mate, who now they have two reindeer to carry. The two of them, and also provides them with fresh milk, so that they don't starve.
They get home, they meet the robber girl, and after they talk to her, they walk back to their home, and discover that, wow, things are different. Wait, no, things aren't different. We're different. We've grown up now, and we're happy that it's almost summertime.
Yep, they both are suddenly adults.
Well, I don't know if I'd say adults.
Well, at least late teenagers. They've matured.
Yeah, I'd honestly say they're just like, they're adolescents. Like, they've gone from being like, I am a sweet little 5th grader to I am a mature middle schooler, which is a phrase that makes me laugh given my job.
And yeah. And they live happily ever after.
The end.
We never see the Snow Queen again. But we do see most of the other characters that they met along the way, because Gerta basically just backtracks through the entire story, letting everybody they met along the way who helped her know that, hey, I found him! And most of them are super happy to receive her. They meet the robber girl heading north to seek her fortune. They meet the domesticated crow, who was the partner of the crow who helped Gerta meet the princess. The crow himself, unfortunately, had died of old age in their absence. But his mate is still working in the palace as the official court crow, and the prince and princess are happy together. And they trek one by one through all of the people they've met back to their original village. And that's where they have this revelation of, oh, we grew up. Well, at least a little bit. And that's where it ends. You have anything to add before we call this one?
Nope.
Alright. And that wraps up the recap. We'll see y'all next time.
Bye.